So what I'm going to do now is to divide the groups. Okay, I'm going around. Once I divided the groups, I will explain the game. Yeah? So I may move you around the class. But you can go reading the instructions of the game. Right, so let me explain the game. This is the instructions that you have, okay? So I'm not saying anything differently. So this game consists of 5 rounds. Right? At the start of it, so all of you are a different firm, competing in a private competition environment. So you have information, in the information sheet that you have, if you turn it around, yeah? You have particular information for your firm. So for example, so see, all of you will have a number, which I'll explain what it is in a minute. What is your group number? I'll explain what it is for. These are the instructions, and if you turn it around, you have the record sheet. Here you have information about your fixed cost. Each of you have a different fixed cost. Don't share it with the other firms. A cost function. And now the idea is that without having any other information, in each round, and round 1 will be the one in which you have less information, of course, you are going to tell me how many of you decide to enter into the market. There are no barriers to entry or exit the market, okay? If you decide to enter into the market, then you put this sign up. Okay, so I know how many firms are in the market. If you decide not to enter into the market, don't put it up. Right, once I know how many firms are in the market, I will announce the price. Okay? And knowing that price, those firms that are in the market, then we'll have to decide how much output they will be producing. And your output, in this case, the information has to be between 0 and 10. It has to be a whole number. It cannot be 1.5, okay? 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, or 10. Then I have some helpers, which I have already identified them. Yeah? Can you put your hand up if I identify as a helper? Okay. So, one will collect the data for the groups on this side. Some people collect the data for the groups on this side. Okay? So you collect the data for the groups on this side. And so you collect the data for the groups on this side. Just the output that you release. And this will be just for the firms who have entered the market. Okay? So tell them whether you have entered the market or not. Right. So once we finish round 1, I will again announce how many firms enter the market for round 2. If you have entered the market for round 1, doesn't mean that you have to enter for round 2. You may decide to be out of the market, okay, for that round. And then you put again the sign up if you enter the market in round 2. I will announce the price, and then you will decide how much output to produce. We will do it 5 times, right? And then we will see the results, and we will explain perfect competition from there. I will show you also the results of last year's game, okay? But we will have a discussion. So try to make rational decisions, okay? Because I think the rational decision you will have to explain it. Yeah? Okay, so everyone understood? Questions? None of the questions. Right. So first one can be a trial, yeah? Okay, so how many firms are entering the market? So, okay, I'll give you 30 seconds to talk with your groups whether you are going to enter the market in round 1 or not. And then I'll ask you how many firms are entering the market, and you will have to put your signs up if you are entering the market, yeah? If he has arrived and you don't have a group, please just join a group. Can you sit with this guy over there? That one, yeah. Okay. Okay, how many firms are entering the market? Come on, sign up. If you are entering the market. Come on, come on, come on. I don't know. Ask the people who are there. Yeah, okay. So how many? Come on. Yes, okay, so. Okay. 11. Okay, so if you didn't put the sign up yet, don't put it. Okay. So, right. The price is 48. So round one, price 48. Just for those firms who have entered the market, now you need to decide how much output would you produce with the price equals 48. Just for those who have entered the market. I'll give you 2 minutes, and in 2 minutes I have to collect the data of the output, okay, for all the fields. But just those who have entered the market will need to tell them the output. Wait, 1 more minute. So remember when you collect the data, by the way, to put it next to the number of fields, okay? So I know whether it is field 4, field 5, or field 212, okay? Again. Okay. Now, those who have already data centers will go in your assigned row and go collecting the data for the fields who have entered the market. How much output are they producing in round one? Just for those who have entered the market, and please put it next to the number of fields so I know which firm it is, yes? So tell them which firm, which number you are. And I think I'm going to use that's fine. Yes, yes. Okay, so I'm going to ask you again, how many firms are entering the market in 10 seconds? Okay, 1 second. So now discuss with your group if whether you are entering the market this time or not. Nobody here? Okay. Okay, so the price for round 2 is 43. Right, so we're in round 2, 43. Now again, 2 minutes. How much output could you release? Okay, so again, they will pass to collect your data. So just tell the people who passes around how much output for both fields have entered the market, how much output have you released, yeah? Exit the market this time. If you never enter the market, at the end of the class I will tell you why you've never entered the market. So don't you just think that you can get away with playing the top. Okay. I'll ask you. Okay. Yeah? Okay. So the price now is 50. Round 3. $50. Right, 1 minute, because now you are experts on this, so you can calculate output security. Okay? And remember, we just have 2 more rounds to play. Okay, so now you need to tell the output to the people who is passing through your routes collecting the data for round 3. So if you enter the market, please tell them how much output you decide to produce in round 3 of the class activity. Okay. Okay, so for round 4, prices again, 48. Okay, so if you practice maths knowledge, they count how much output they are producing this round, and we just have the last round, okay? Today. And then I will look at the fields of capital interest, and you will tell me which strategy you have. Even if you've not entered the market in any round, you will tell me why. No, they didn't, they didn't. Huh? No, they didn't. They signed. Okay, and for the final round, which firms are entering the market? And again, please, if you are entering the market, put your sign up. Okay, keep that until otherwise I will. Okay, so the price is 42 for the last round. Right, and now please. You could collect the data for the last round, and this time, instead of keeping the paper for you, bring it to me. Okay, so.
answer, and I didn't quite line it up at the top.
So did anyone never enter the market?
I'm not sure if these are my groups. I think no, all the groups.
Okay.
It's like the rest of them myself.
Yeah, okay, fine. Thank you. Yeah. Okay, perfect, yeah. Okay, so now is when we are gonna talk about the conclusions of the game. Okay, how were you deciding what output to choose? But first, I can see it here though, but I'm gonna allow you to tell me. Did any group never enter the market? And why? Okay, what about group 19 at the back? You never enter the market? Why? Because you didn't understand. Okay. Okay. But you could have asked, but yeah. Okay, so, right. So how were you deciding how much output to release or to produce?
Same price for the largest possible.
Okay. Why? Because you know how perfect competition works, but why? Okay. Why do we do that in perfect competition? Why do we do that in perfect competition? Why do you do that in perfect competition?
Because it's allocatively efficient.
Okay.
They operate where prices are.
Okay. Yeah? Okay. He's learned really well the definition, the theoretical definition. Right. They were equally in price to cost because they know how perfect competition works. But is that the other way to maximize profits? What everyone else was doing? So you come back to that results through the perfect maximization problem anyway. But what everyone else was doing? Did anyone took into account the revenue? For example, how were you deciding the output? Why did you decide 5, 6, 7, why? Okay, minimizing losses. Okay, so you were actually looking at the cost and see, okay, how you were comparing your cost with?
Basically, we had like an Excel sheet where we put the cost, variable cost, price.
Okay.
We calculated revenue minus
Okay, so you were calculating the revenue. So, okay, so you used Excel. Okay, that's good. And I guess you calculated the total revenue as the price times the potential output. Yeah, this is for one firm. And they taking into account your total cost, okay, which it will be the fixed cost that your firm was having, plus everyone had the same cost function. Yeah? But what was changing was the fixed cost. What was making you decide to enter the market or not? And now round 1 was random, okay? But what about in round 2, 3, and 4? Why you were deciding to enter the market or not? Just to try your luck, or? you want to say? Okay, so depending on your profits in the round before, yes. So if you were having negative profits, maybe in the following round, you decided not to enter because it happened that the price was too high. And if you were having positive profits, maybe in the following round, you decided, yes, exactly, to enter. Very well. So one characteristic of this is that you had a fixed cost. So were you competing all the time in the short run or in the long run? You were never getting rid of the fixed cost. Yeah? And that's a characteristic of the short run. So we were never arriving to the situation of the long run, in which I told you your fixed cost. Yeah? Or your fixed cost decreases or whatever is. Remember from last lecture that if we have a fixed cost, we are short run. Yeah? And when we have just variable cost, when all the costs are variable, then we are in the long run. And their fixed cost doesn't depend on output. So I told you, well, it's set in the instructions, I didn't tell you. If you enter the market, you have to pay your fixed cost even if you produce 0. Okay? So that's a characteristic of the short run. Another characteristic of this market, what was happening, so you were deciding whether to enter the market or not, yeah? And then I was telling you the price. So did you have any power to increase or decrease the price? No. And so as firms, you were what is called price takers. Yes, so how was the price decided? The price was decided in the industry, and I was deciding the price depending on the number of firms that were entering the market in each round. Yeah? I had an actual proper game schedule for that. I was not making it up. Okay? So, in perfect competition, the firms are price takers. They don't have market power. They cannot increase or decrease the price. Why do you think it's that? Because I tell you so. No. Why? Why do you think firms cannot increase? I know you've seen perfect competition. At least, if you've never, we're going to learn about it. Okay. Okay. But why do you have to accept? What happens if I tell you, so imagine all of you are selling apples, the same time of apple, okay, lady, the first one that came to my mind, yeah? And one are producing apples, and one of you decides, and all of you are selling the apples at 50p per, okay? One of you increases the price of the apples. And here suddenly 50 students who really want to buy apples, okay, coming to here. Yeah, what about if you increase the price? What happens to you? No one buys.
Because of the substitutes.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it goes in line with what you said, you know? It was just like more. Okay, so exactly. So if all of you are selling exactly the same product, okay, like in this case, all of you had exactly the same cost function. I know the fixed costs were different, and that's what will make you to enter or exit the market, but I'll come back to that in a minute. Then what happens, if one of you increases the price, if you lose all your demand, nobody's going to want to buy the product. Because a characteristic of this type of industry is that the product is identical. So it means you don't have, as a firm, you don't have any market power. Okay? An example of perfect competition in real life? No? We can find examples in the agricultural industry, but it's not that easy, okay? It's going to be a work-based model, perfect competition, from where we see other types of competitions. Okay, so another thing here, because Obviously, I mean, your colleague here said something very important. He was like, he's seen perfect competition before, and he was saying, well, actually, what we were doing is to equal the price to the marginal cost to calculate exactly the output. And we are going to see that, yeah? We're going to arrive to that. But for now, let's just leave it there. If we do that, I'm going to tell you, the firms will get a profit of 0, which is normal profits in economics. However, were you getting profits equal 0? No. You were getting positive profits or negative profits, okay? The price was too high. Why? It's possible, never heard of it. But when is it possible? Why? Why you were getting? Why were you getting negative profits? Or positive profits?
Because there weren't the maximum amount of firms in the market.
Yeah, but it is. Yes, okay, so there was like movement of firms which were varying the price in the industry, okay? So, okay, there was no stable number of firms. Why? Because we were in the short run, okay, of the industry all the time. So one characteristic of perfect competition is going to be that in the short run, firms can make profits abnormal, which it just means positive profits in economics, okay, or well, negative, and then, you know, they may decide to exit or not. But in the long run, we are going to see that actually always the profit will end up being 0. We will have like a stable type of equilibrium in perfect competition because of the characteristics. And so now we're going to formalize this a little bit more. And I'll come back to the examples of what happened last year later on. And I also released your data talking about perfect competition. So we are going to use actually the results of the game, okay, to explain briefly perfect competition, and then we will end up with monopoly. But first we're going to have a break, okay? So I'll see you in 10 minutes. Yeah.
Hi, Tracer. You mean this text or not?
No, the only thing that you have to answer, if you go to the first one, is this. Your opinion section has information comparable, so part of the location so you are asked to find any certain point, right? So basically just whether you think, what data is telling you. How is important this data for your CEO and why?
I can choose to answer this.
Exactly, yeah.
Thanks. Some questions about the group project. The second question show graphically the relationship between this hypothesis and this hypothesis. So does this mean that I need to build two graphs? The first graph is this hypothesis and this. The second graph is rating this. Or does it mean that I should show the relationship between this and this?
It could mean whatever you think is relevant for your project.
But
What do you think is relevant to say?
I think I need to build two graphs.
Okay, then you build scripts.
Because if I build this relationship and this relationship together, that would be weird.
Okay, build two graphs is fine.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
I found that in the data set, the data has some problem when I want to adjust the formula. When I want to adjust from date, month to year, some data cannot be adjusted from this.
What do you mean?
Just like when I want to adjust all the data from date, month to year, some data Excel cannot.
But yeah, because it's not recognizing this as a date.
Yeah.
You could do it by hand. You could do it by hand.
So I'll try to
Or
do,
try to tell Excel that's a date.
So I try to do by hand to recognize it because it's only 3 months. Okay.
Okay, so what we are going to see today is to start looking at the two types of market competition. And then next week we will finish with this, and we will also see how to look at the different types of concentration in an industry, okay? So we will see that next week. So we are going to start explaining perfect competition. We've already seen part of it with the game, okay? We will build up for that. Perfect competition will be our baseline model, and we will build up the different types of competition from there. Monopoly will be the complete opposite to perfect competition. And then next week we will see oligopoly and game theory and how to identify the type of concentration or the type of industry in a real industry, okay, with the data that we have depending on market shares. After that, the schedule is going to change to the schedule that you have in Blackboard, because we will have a guest lecture by Ofcom on the 8th of December, okay, together with Micro 3. It was going to be during the Micro 3 lecture, but it's going to be during this lecture, okay, which I'm quite happy for, because then all of you can attend. And then they will explain to you how the different disciplines, Ofcom is a regulator in this country, okay, it's the telecommunications regulator, how the different disciplines and how economics comes to regulate, okay, competition in the telecommunication industry, and they will explain to you different cases that they have. And we will finish on the 15th of December with product differentiation, okay, so no, actually, we are going to end up seeing all the topics, because on the 15th of December, I was going to do a type of revision final exam, and we will see product differentiation and final exam, because I'm just moving back one lecture, so it's completely fine. Right, so the first thing is that we can classify the degree of competition of firms, okay, in some qualitative characteristics. We can actually also look at the market share that the firms have, and from there look at a classification. But we will see that at the start of next week. So let's start with the qualitative characteristics of the firms. And some of them, you've already seen them in the game. So the first one is going to be the number of firms. Okay, so we are not going to specifically say 1, 2, 3, 4, well, just for Monopoly, but for the rest of the industries, no? We are going to classify between many firms, few firms in an industry, okay, and only one firm, which could be the extreme case. Then the nature of the product will refer to whether the product is identical, so all the firms are producing exactly the same product, or is differentiated, okay, whether firms can differentiate between products. Then the information that firms have. So it could be that you have perfect information about costing of other firms, for example, or about strategies of other firms. It could be also from consumers' perspective that you have perfect information about what's going on in an industry, or you don't have perfect information. Okay, so it's going to be about whether there's perfect information or imperfect information. And then we will have also, it will depend on the cost, and it will depend on the barriers to entry and exit the industry, that we are going to see what do I mean by barriers to entry and exit the industry. Okay, I will put you examples. Some of them are approximate examples, okay? Right, so let's start with the first type of market that you have already seen. By the way, these slides will be in week 8, okay? Because remember, because we didn't have one lecture, because we have the assess exercise 1, yes, so we are 1 week ahead of the lectures. Right, so perfect competition. In perfect competition, the first characteristic, how many firms are we going to have in the industry? Many firms, okay? And there is actually a reason why we're going to have many firms. The main reason is because of the barriers to entry. Barriers to entry in the industry are very, very low or none. Barriers to entry will be, for example, environmental regulations that you have to meet, okay? And here, not just environmental regulations, but any type of legal regulations that you have to meet, okay, to enter into an industry. If it is very costly to get the technology, okay, that you need to produce the good to enter into that industry, it will also be a barrier to entry. Okay, anything that you can think of that to start producing, okay, may be something that will stop firms for entering. Same for exiting, okay? There could be some legal regulations to exit an industry, and it could be that it's very difficult to exit an industry. It could be that it's relatively easy and very difficult to exit, and that will still stop firms to enter an industry. For workshop 1, and you will also have a real release today, we are actually going to see the case of a new restaurant opening where I live in Prestwich, and how this has entered into the type of monopolistic competition, which is the restoration industry, okay? Right, so the nature of the product in perfect competition, we already explained that on the first hour of the class. It is identical. So this means that firms don't differentiate between products. You produce exactly the same product with exactly the same characteristics, okay, the firms. And this is very important. I know it's very restricted, but it's very important to define perfect competition. Otherwise, we are talking about a different type of competition. So, see, we have many firms, okay, with unrestricted barriers to entry, with a differentiated product. We are already talking about monopolistic competition. We are not talking about perfect competition. Okay, so this characteristic is essential to perfect competition. Don't worry about the demand curve, we will see that now. Example, I told you there are different examples in the agricultural industry, which we could argue they are perfect competition. These are approximate examples, okay? They are not perfect examples, because we use perfect competition as our baseline model. Right, from the characteristics of perfect competition, depending on the variations, we have different types of markets. The one that we are going to see today is monopoly, which you can see is the extreme, okay? It's the other extreme of perfect competition. In monopoly, we are going to have one firm. We are going to have high barriers to entry or exit the industry. Sometimes, actually, it's the own firm in the market, the one that puts the barriers to entry or exit the industry. For example, they may have the patent of a product, and even if the patent finishes, they don't want to sell the patent, okay? So they actually put limitations. Examples, in the past, and in the actuality, Microsoft, okay, is well known for monopolistic practices, and well, many of these big firms could be. But also the characteristics they sell a unique product, well, there is just one firm, obviously the product is unique, okay? And there are close substitutes either to the product, okay? So it's not easy for people to change from one firm to another. Something that I want you to have very clear when we see monopolies are not allowed, okay? And there could be exceptions, okay, and several regulations to them, but they are not allowed. And if monopolistic practices are identified, this is when the regulators, like for example Ofcom, who will come to talk to you, come into place to regulate these practices, okay? Okay, again, in this country, the general one is CMA, okay? The one that they regulate them. Okay, so now, in perfect competition, this is a little bit more detailed information. I didn't mention the information, so also another characteristic is that both firms and consumers have perfect information about all the costing and prices, okay, all the production strategies that are happening in the industry. Again, this is going to be very difficult to find, okay, in an actual industry. Right, so what happens then if we have these characteristics? So something that we saw in the game is that you were entering the market, you were deciding whether to enter the market or exit in the market based on the profits that you had in the past round. But I said you don't have any decision power on any market power, which is whether you can increase or decrease the price. And we gave a simple example, okay, in which I said, what about if all of you produce exactly the same type of apples? If one of you increases the price, nobody will buy from you. Okay, so because of the characteristics of perfect competition, we have the case in which the firms don't have market power. The firms cannot increase or decrease the price. So how is the price decided? Well, the price is decided in the industry, okay? And you are going to have the industry on the right-hand side. So there is going to be a market demand, and in fact, you will see, because I upload the results for your game, in your game, the market demand, this is the direct, okay, but you can calculate the inverse. The market demand was this. But was it actually relevant for you? Well, no, because I was giving you the price, so it was relevant for the industry to decide the price, okay? You couldn't decide the price, so you couldn't actually use the market demand in principle, okay? So decide the price, and I didn't give it to you on purpose. So there is going to be a demand for that good. The demand will be more elastic or more inelastic, depending on the market that we are talking about, and then a supply. And the supply is going to be, remember, well, it would depend also on the number of firms that there are in the industry, okay, and the number of goods that they produce for every single level of prices. So in this industry, after all the firms are in the industry, like I was doing in the game, this is where the price will be decided. And then once the price is decided in the industry for that firm, this firm here, who is producing in this perfect competition market, knows that has to sell at that price. That's it, the price is given for the firm. They are price takers. Okay? No price makers. That's how it's called. I didn't make up this. Right. So now all the firms are going to produce, in principle, the same quantity. Okay? Here we are not considering location. We are not considering whether a firm is closer than another. We will see actually circular models by the end of the module. Okay? But this is the quantity that is produced in the market at this price, and we assume, okay, that because there are no differences between the industries, all of them will produce the same quantity, which will be the total quantity divided by the number of firms. Okay? Okay. Each individual firm will have a cost function associated. You had a cost function, yeah, in the game. And from there, of course, you will be able to determine your marginal cost and your average cost. Now, all the firms have the same cost. Okay, because we are assuming again, in perfect competition, that all the firms have exactly the same conditions. And the fixed cost could be different, okay? But in terms of variable cost, okay, we're assuming that there is homogeneous information across the firms. Okay. Right, so what happens then? Sorry. Okay, so here could happen different things. One is we could have shocks to the demand and shocks to the supply. So can there be variations in the price on perfect competition? Yes, of course. There were variations in your game, okay? I didn't assume any shock in the demand in your case. So we were assuming that, I was assuming the consumers will demand, so the demand curve will not change. But in some rounds, there were more firms than in other rounds. And that was altering the price in the industry. But again, the price was being decided in the industry. And this will happen in perfect competition. So it could be that we have shocks in the demand, okay, and our demand, for example, shifts to the right. Maybe this is the bicycles market. Okay, nobody example for perfect competition, but you know, like maybe, and then people becomes more environmentally friendly, and at the same level of prices, people will demand more this good. Okay, okay. Oh, I gave you the example of cabbage for perfect competition. But maybe people start demanding more cabbage in a specific area if they produce a lot of cabbage, okay, because for environmental reasons they don't want to consume other goods that are exported from other areas. It could be different reasons, but we could have shocks in the demand. This then will alter the price, okay? And then in this case, for example, what's happening is that if we have a shock of the demand to the right, then the quantity in the industry will increase, but the price will also increase. So now we have here this poor firm, okay, which was operating in this market. There was an external shock in the demand, and now the industry says, oh, by the way, it's P1 now, which is higher than PC, okay, and you are already in the market producing, but you are a price taker, you need to produce that. So what do you think? It happens here. What's happening to this firm? The price now is about this average cost, okay? It's about, remember the average cost will be the cost per unit produced. So the marginal cost will be the cost of the last unit produced, yeah? The average cost will be the cost of the of the average cost per unit produced, yeah? So actually this firm now is having losses, in principle, yeah? We can assume that from the graph. Okay, so what happens now is that this firm will actually, so do you think if it is having losses before I do that? In the next round, imagine this is a game, right? When you were having losses, were you exiting or entering the market? Actually, who is paying attention to what I'm saying? Okay.
Because we wanted to gamble, but like the prices.
Yeah. Very good. But who is paying attention to what I'm explaining? Because I made a huge mistake explaining this. I'm recognizing it. That's fine. I realized 2 minutes after. What did I just say? I said the firm has.
You said if it makes a loss,
Yeah, and.
it gets super long profit instead of.
Exactly, and it's not making a loss. Very good. So I said that, I explained to you. So the average cost is the average cost per product here, okay? And we have the price above, and the firm is making a loss. Fantastic, yeah? And none of you stopped me talking about this. You were like, yes, taking notes, why not, yeah? No, the firm is actually making a profit because the price is higher than the average cost. Right, when you were making profits, and this just goes to the decision that you were making, yeah, you told me like, oh no, actually we were making losses and we were entering the market, but we shouldn't have, yeah? But if you were making a profit, you were keeping into the market. Okay, if we have profits in a perfect competition industry, what do you think is going to happen?
More firms will come into the market.
Yeah, very good. So first of all, you will keep in the market, but more firms will come into the market. Why? Because it is attractive. Yeah, there are no barriers to entry or exit the industry, so you could enter and try your luck. Yeah, and more firms will enter into the market. This could have happened actually in your game. And what do you think is going to happen with the price if more firms enter into the market in the industry? The price will go down. Yeah, very well. So if more firms enter into the market, this is a shock in the supply, okay? They will keep entering, and they will keep entering, and they will keep entering, until when? You have it in the graph. Until the price is at the point in which profits are normal, that we call in economics, or equal to zero, okay? So until there is no more profit. Why they will not keep entering into the market? Because if they keep entering into the market, then they're going to have losses, yeah, and what will happen is like the exit until we arrive to the point in which the profit equals to zero. And that happens exactly at the point in which, like your classmate said before, price equals the marginal cost. That's why in perfect competition we equal the price to marginal cost. Yeah? Okay. So let me show you, in fact, I didn't have time to pass the data of your game, but I will do. But let me show you what happened last year. We just played 4 rounds. You were very quick, but actually last year it was not that quick, okay? So it was quite slow, so we stopped in 4 rounds. You have there, they were a bit different to you. In fact, instead of increasing the number of firms that we were entering, that were very variable, they were decreasing in round 4. I don't know what happened there, but they were decreasing. So see that at the end, what was round 3 will be the perfect round, okay, more or less. What was happening is like just the firms which were having, or almost all of them, as the firm one there, which were having positive profits, were in the market. They kept in the market, okay? So all of them that were having losses, or most of them, decided to exit the market. So what we were having is like a shift to the left of the supply curve in this industry. And so the price was increasing, yeah? So from round 3 to round 4, actually more firms decided to enter, and the price decreased because one more firm decided to enter. What should have happened? To be rational, that firm 1 exited and the rest stayed, okay? That's what should have happened in this game. If we actually go to graphically, and I will also do the graphs for your case, I did calculate it, the quantity demanded with that equation there, and then the supply, which I will give it also to you. And then depending on the number of firms, the quantity supply will change, okay? So see that when the number of firms was 10, this was the quantity supply. And then if more firms were entering into the market, right, the supply was shifting to the right. And so the price was decreasing. Yes, so the game actually reflects the graph of the industry that I put you before. For a specific individual firm, or for specific individual firms, then you could also see that with their specific cost. And, sorry. So what I will do is to get your data in an Excel spreadsheet and upload it so you can see the results of your game, okay? But that were the results for your game this year. Actually, in next year's lecture, I will show the results of your game. Okay, so 2 things here. The first one is, remember that when I say normal profit, I refer to profit equal to 0. This is just an economic term, okay? This is how we call it. Do you know why? There is a reason for this. because it's better in terms of consumer surplus, okay? When we're having the profit equal to 0, when we are selling at exactly the point of price equals the marginal cost, then, so basically what is happening here is that, so we get the price, yeah, and the marginal cost is the equivalent to the, sorry, I was using the right, to the supply of one firm, okay? So the price is given, and we are selling there. Now, if we go to the industry graph, in the industry graph, if we have the demand and we have the supply for the whole industry, and this is the price, two things happen here. One is that the demand equals the average revenue that we saw last week, but also equals the marginal revenue. So can you see that last week I explained the marginal revenue is twice as steep as the demand curve? That's not happening in perfect competition, okay, because of the characteristics of the industry. So if this is the equilibrium for the industry, in the long run, and I will explain now about it, in the long run, this is the maximum consumer surplus that we can get, and we will compare it in 1 second to monopoly, okay? And this happens, this maximum consumer surplus happens when our price equals to the marginal cost. So when we're at the stable part in which profits are not having abnormal profits or negative profits, okay? So if we are having abnormal profits, then the consumer surplus will be less, yeah? So firms, yes, they will be having a positive profit, but the satisfaction for our consumers, the consumer surplus will be less. And that's one of the reasons behind why it is called normal profits, okay? Because in terms of the consumer surplus. Now, it is true that in perfect competition, firms have profit equal to 0, but this just happens in the long run equilibrium, okay? It could happen in the short run, right? But in the short run, they could have positive profits. If they have abnormal profits, then more firms will enter into the market. It will shift the supply curve to the right until the point in which all the individual firms are selling where the price equals marginal cost. If the, marginal cost equals marginal cost and average total cost, okay? So at this point, right? So it has to happen both things. Price equals marginal cost and price equals average cost to be in the long run equilibrium, yeah? Because here, if we are in the short run in which they are selling abnormal profits, the firm is still selling at price equals marginal cost, but is having positive profits. So imagine they ask you, this firm is competing in perfect competition, it's competing in the short run or in the long run. But you say, well, it needs to sell price because it's given equal the marginal cost, which is its supply curve. If it has positive profits, then it's the short run for sure. How much will be the output that it produces in the long run? Then you need to equal the price to the marginal cost and to the average total cost. Yeah? Which is exactly the point on the long run. Why? Because below that, the price will be below the average total cost. And so in this case, I'm going to say it correctly, it will have losses, it will exit the market. Yeah? So it will not be the long run equilibrium either, because that firm, for starters, will not be in that market. Right. Okay, so we saw this last week. And so you have actually an Excel spreadsheet in Blackboard, okay, in which you have an example with perfect competition, and you can vary the quantity and the price and see what was going on, what was happening with the graphs. And then you can reset. You have a reset button that I created. You can reset and come back to the initial equilibrium. So you can check with what happens with the data there. Right, so in the other case, everyone is okay with perfect competition? Or is there anything that you want me to repeat?
So normal profit?
0.
It says on the slide it's not the same as 0.
It is. Is that so? Okay, so it is, in this case it is for perfect competition. Okay, but we could be in cases in which normal profit is the maximum consumer surplus that actually great question, that is the maximum consumer surplus that we can get in that particular industry, and sometimes we'll still call it normal profit. But in this case it is because it's the maximum consumer surplus that it will give us in the perfect competition. Okay, but good point, I will rephrase that here. Okay, so in the opposite case to perfect competition, we have monopoly. And in monopoly, we are not going to have many firms. We are going to have just one firm. Okay? There could still be substitutes to the good that the firm is producing, but they are going to be long-distance substitutes. Okay? They're not going to be close substitutes in any case. Okay. So in this case, do you think my firm is going to have market power? Yes, lots, okay, of market power, yeah. So how it's going to be its demand? Because see, in perfect competition, the demand for the industry is downward sloping, but the demand for a single firm, so if we go to perfect competition, just trying to get a blue pen, I don't know what it is. Okay, so if we go to perfect competition, we have, this is just for one firm, and the price. So we have the marginal cost, and then the price which is given by the industry. So this is what it decides the quantity. So basically the demand curve is given. Yes, so this is the demand curve for my individual firm. Is perfectly elastic in perfect competition. Yeah, it's a horizontal demand curve. But that comes from the idea that it doesn't have the market power to increase or decrease the price. Yeah, it just needs to produce at that stack price. That's why it's perfectly horizontal. Now, what's going to happen in monopoly is that my firm does have market power. Yeah, so how is it going to be the demand curve horizontal? No, it's going to be the demand curve of the industry. Yes, so if I have my firm, which will produce a quantity at a price, it will have the supply curve, which is just itself, and the demand, which is going to be downward sloping. And that's going to be the demand of the industry. Why? Because it can increase or decrease the price. So we know that if it increases the price, quantity will be less, just looking at the demand, okay? And if it decreases the price, quantity will be more, law of the demand. Okay? So in this case, the monopolies, there are more things left in this graph, okay? But the monopoly is going to face a downward sloping demand curve. For the monopolist, that means it's price maker, so it has market power. The demand is going to be equal to the average revenue. The demand is always going to be equal to the average revenue, okay? Because remember, the average revenue is just the revenue per unit of product sold. And how much is the revenue for each unit of product sold? The price. Okay, that's exactly what you get. So that's why the demand equals the average revenue. Right, so that's the graph, but let's just continue with this one. So in this case, the demand is not going to be equal to the marginal revenue. Okay, again, because of the fact that it's going to have market power. And it's going to be twice as steep as the demand curve. I proved that also in the last lecture, so we are not going to see it, but you are going to have to believe it right now. Now, here we have to think of, so in perfect competition we said, well, no, an individual firm cannot decide price, the price is given, but can't decide how much output to produce. And the output will be decided when price equals marginal cost. So there are two important decisions in the profit maximization problem.
which my firms have to make. One is to decide the price, and the other one is to decide the quantity. In the case of perfect competition, we said, well, the price is given, and the quantity is going to be decided where the price equals marginal cost. That's the profit maximization problem for a firm in perfect competition. Okay? So everything is on the slides now, right? But what I'm going to do is to compare them, okay? Algebraically. Okay. But what about in the case of monopoly? You have this graph. I will write it down again. Okay, so how is my firm deciding what's the output that they should sell and what's the price that they should set? Are they going to sell here? Do you think they will sell there? No, why? It's a perfect valid point. Yeah, and why that doesn't profit maximize? Yeah, exactly. They are earning normal profit, which in this case it could be positive, for example, okay? Or it could be it's going to depend on the conditions. Yeah. So in this case, it's actually the comparison with the perfect competition. Okay, this is where perfect competition decides the quantity and price on that industry. Whether the firm will end up here profit equal to 0 or positive profit is going to depend on whether we're in the long run or in the short run in perfect competition. Okay? Okay, so they will not, so they can do better to maximize profit. Okay? Because they are the only ones in the market. Yeah? So they are not competing with anyone. So, but the thing is, what they are going to want to do is to sell at the highest price possible, but the minimum amount that they could produce, okay, for that higher price. So and that's where this graph comes also into play. So they are going to take into account their marginal cost, which the marginal cost equals to the supply cost of one single firm, okay, for this specific firm. Their average cost for exactly the profits that they are going to get. So let me actually rephrase in this graph. So this could be the marginal cost for this firm, okay? Let's leave it like that. Right, so they will produce the quantity in here. And in this point exactly is where marginal cost equals marginal revenue. So what happens exactly at that point? Exactly at that point, the cost of the last unit produced equals the revenue of that last unit produced. Okay? So, and then are they gonna sell then at this price? Well, if we, for example, look at that graph there, and we actually assume that the average cost, let's assume this is the long run equilibrium, is here, then, no, they're not going to sell at that price. Yeah? In fact, they are going to say, actually, if I sell that quantity, Q star, so in the slides you have the more clear graph, yeah? If I sell this quantity, which is where marginal revenue equals marginal cost, I know because of my market conditions that the maximum amount that consumers will be willing to pay me is this here. So I take that quantity and I go to the demand curve. So this is the maximum price that consumers will be willing to pay for that quantity that I released. Yeah? So that's the price that they will release. Okay, so let me just get around this again. So to maximize profits, we have perfect competition. Okay, and if you have questions, then it's the moment now. Yeah, and then in perfect competition, the price is given by the industry. So my firms just have to decide on the quantity that they will sell given that price. And how they will decide that is equaling that price to the marginal cost, okay, which is the cost of the last unit produced. And remember, the marginal cost is their individual supply curve. Yeah? If then you calculate profits, because this could be another step, okay? If the profit is positive, then you know that we are in the short run, yeah? And if the profit equals to 0, you are in the long run. But in the long run, for an individual firm, the quantity that it will produce in the long run, so the profit equal to 0, will have to be at this point, okay, if you have to calculate it. I mean, we saw that graphically. I'm not saying anything new there, yeah? Okay. Now, what is the comparison with monopoly? So my monopolist does have market power. So the monopolist will still have to take into account the demand, the supply, and so the industry demand, in this case the marginal revenue because the demand is downward slope here, and the marginal cost. And then we will also have the average cost, which you could assume to be here. Okay? So now for the monopolist, the profit maximization problem is a two-step process because the price is not given. So they actually have to decide on both the price and the quantity. That's the two-step. Yeah? The first step is going to be to calculate the optimum output. So first they are going to calculate the optimum output, which is what we are calling this Q star. And they will calculate it where marginal cost, so the cost of the last unit produced, equals the revenue of the last unit, which is exactly here, where marginal cost equals marginal revenue. So that will be your Q star. So this is where marginal cost equals marginal revenue. Yeah. Next week I will show you how to do all this maximization problem just using Excel, okay? Because there is a command for that. Yeah, and this is what we'll see in the first 5 minutes. Right. Then the second step is to decide the optimum price. So on the optimum price, they will go to the demand curve and they will see what's the maximum price that they will be willing to pay for, consumers will be willing to pay for that quantity. So you take the optimum output to the demand curve, okay? So you substitute there, whatever the demand curve is, the inverse demand curve is in that case. The profits here are going to be positive, okay? I mean, yeah, otherwise the price is not much reason to be a monopolist. Right, and how can you calculate the profits there? And to have it also with that areas in that graph could be to the total cost. Here will be the consumer surplus. And see what I told you before about the consumer surplus, that perfect competition is maximizing consumer surplus. So if in this case we want to calculate the perfect competition output, we will have to go to where the industry will set the price and quantity in perfect competition, which it will be here. So this will be the output in perfect competition, the price in perfect competition. The consumer surplus will be higher. See that in perfect competition they will sell more output at a lower price. Yeah? So it is more efficient in terms of consumer surplus. And in terms of total surplus also, which is how we will measure efficiency. Yeah? It should be. Okay, so then you have an example of, for example, with numbers. Okay, the reason why I'm showing you how it works first, because you need to know how it works to understand what Excel is doing. Okay, otherwise you don't know if Excel is giving you the correct data or just like giving you whatever. Right, so obviously you will need, and you have also in Excel this example in Excel, okay, in the graphs. So if you have a demand curve, yeah, which, remember, if you want to do the inverse demand curve, the only thing that you have to do is to solve for P in this case. And then you have, for example, the total cost function of this firm. So the first step will be to equal the marginal cost to the marginal revenue. And I could do it in the visualizer. I'm not going to do it on purpose, okay? So you try. So you know what you have to do, and you could try to do it. You have it sorted out in the slides. And you can always come to see me to my office hours if you can now. So this. Okay, so how do you calculate the marginal revenue and the marginal cost? Well, the marginal cost is just going to be how the total cost increases when you increase quantity, okay? So the differentiation of the total cost with respect to quantity. The marginal revenue, you calculate the total revenue that before around there explained very well, it was price times quantity, okay? And then you, it will give you this equation here, for example, and then you just differentiate with respect to quantity. You equal marginal revenue to marginal cost, and this gives you the output that these monopolies will set, which is 107, because in this case it's a restaurant in a theme park. That's why I rounded it up to 107 and avoided the 1, okay? You need to serve full meals. The second step, this is just repetition of the slide before. The second step will be to calculate the price. So you just go to the demand and substitute the optimum output that you calculated here to be 107 and calculate the price. And then you can calculate profits, which is positive profit. Yeah? You have the workouts in the slides. So try to do it by yourself. If not, return to the slides, okay, to see them. And then we could actually represent it. Again, you have this in Excel. Also, you have access to the Excel file with the demand function that I gave you. Marginal revenue, always twice as step as the demand function. If not, there is a problem. And then the marginal cost, which will be the supply curve. And if you can see here, it will actually cross marginal revenue with marginal cost at 107. And then the price would be, I forgot, around 14.65 per meal, okay, which will be, yeah? That could be your consumer surplus. Okay, so I told you that this is how we are going to finish. I tell you monopolies are forbidden, or well, are regulated, okay? But can in any case exist? Do you think sometimes it's actually a good idea that we have monopolies for certain things? Yeah, how do we call them? And why? Yeah, okay, so sometimes it's more efficient in terms of cost that there is just one firm producing. I'm going to give you a really simple example. So imagine if every single train company was building the train rails, okay, in a country will be full of train rails, okay? So it's much simple just to nominate a company to build that technology. Same with telecommunications, same with many of the public utilities, okay? These things happen, we call these natural monopolies, and they are actually regulated, okay, monopolies. So they are not just monopolies allowed to produce by themselves, they have very specific regulations. So in these cases, the monopolies do exist. When a firm does monopolistic practices, and they shouldn't, is, for example, when it is regulated. And I'm also going to give you another example. So some years ago, Sainsbury and Asda wanted to merge. I'm not sure if you remember that some years ago the CMA said they were not allowed to do it. And the reason is because if they were merging, they were capturing a too high market share, and there was very likely they could become a monopoly in the country. So it was based on consumer surplus and market share that they were actually addressing. they were not allowed to do it. So that's an example of a regulation, okay, in which you cannot do whatever you want in that instances. And that's why next week we will start talking about market shares and how you can identify monopolies or more perfect competition in specific industries before we move on to oligopolies. Yeah? Okay. Questions about today's? We can. Yeah. Tell me.
Confused here. So here it says total revenue price times 1, correct? So should it be 400p minus 20p squared?
No, because it's so right. So this is not an inverse number. This is not a number. And normally we operate with an inverse number, which is the 180%. Okay, so what I have done is solve for C. So in reality, the price
Find the inverse of the demand curve first.
exactly.
So it's 1 over 20, so 0.05.
Exactly. Yeah. So if you do this, yeah. That's the one. That's the price. Yeah. So yeah.
What about 20, right?
Yeah. Sorry, it's 20. Yeah, of course. I forgot here the 20. Sorry. Yeah. I was thinking.
So you find the inverse. Okay, I forgot about this. Thank you.
Honest, what a cute. Yeah. About the project? Yeah. Ask me.
Then we worked about the BMI, and I'm doing the something special because I did everything on the guidelines.
Okay. You didn't have to.
Oh yes.
You could, yeah, but
it made
it's
the
up to
most
you.
sense.
Okay.
Yeah. What I did was I got the percentage of obese people in different age groups.
Yeah.
And I found that the average, for example, exercise days for different age groups, and I found the correlation with that.
Take it.
Is that correct?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. And then I did a regression with the different growth habits and the BMI, but the p-values are all insignificant except for alcohol consumption. That's private, so okay to that. No. So
You just need to explain to me why do you think so, whether that's good enough for you, whether maybe they should look at more data, whether
okay,
recommendations for that.
would that be enough for something special?
Anything is enough. Well, no, but the something special is not about how much significant your coefficients are. It's about how you explain to me that, you send me that idea, and you come around to why that's happening, you know?
Because my focus is on age groups, health habits for different age groups.
Yeah, okay.
And how that develops along with BMI. So BMI for different age groups and health habits.
Why you don't tell me that? In the report.
Oh, to see a trend line, to see how health habits affect BMI.
Yeah.
And the p-value, if I don't agree that they're correct, I just say that. Because they're too,
You could tell me it would be good to look at more data, okay, or maybe look at different hospitals, or maybe it could be a problem with that. I mean, it's about to you what you explained to me on explaining the results, yeah?
Is your officer still going?
Sorry?
Is your officer still going?
Yes, they're going Yes, so it would be when the consumer surplus is maximized. Okay?
competition will maximize consumer surplus.
So perfect competition will give you the highest consumer surplus, okay? But so that's just the highest consumer surplus, okay? So for perfect competition, the maximum consumer surplus would be when price equals marginal cost equals to the total cost, so when the profit equals to zero, okay? But then for other industries, the way of getting consumer surplus is different. And that will be maximized for that specific industry. But that doesn't mean that in perfect competition is higher the consumer surplus. But yes, that's the maximum consumer surplus that you can get. It's going to be in perfect competition.
It's very profit equals to zero. It's in long run, but in short run.
In short run, it could be that the profit is positive, so you could do better. Yeah.
Also, in monopoly industry, it's also a consumer surplus, but it's less than
Exactly. Yeah.
And for the general retail in the spaces, because we can make a profit, positive profit after we calculate. So it's because we are in short. We are not in long run, so the profit so we can make a positive profit.
Okay. In your group. In the play in the group. Yeah. Sorry, I was thinking of the report and I was like, what? Yes, exactly. So you were in the short run, so you had to face a fixed cost. Okay, that's why it was really difficult for you to. So you couldn't avoid that cost. So you will not have lots of you were having losses because of that cost. However, the shut down decision, it is not made in the short run. So you should decide whether to shut down or not, depending on whether your total revenue can cover your variable cost. Why? Because in the long run, that fixed cost is going to disappear. It's going to be a sunk cost. Okay? It may increase, right?
So in long run, we should decide whether total revenue is greater than
the variable cost, exactly. But also in the short run, you shut down just if your total revenue cannot cover your variable cost. Okay? Because that's the cost that is going to continue in the long run. The other one is a sunk cost.
Yes, so for long run, we
I'm not going to use something very as good.
Like, you know, the rap, the edgy stuff.
Yeah, I should leave it. I think I had to make bro.